Robert Mitchum transformed into something far more sinister than Hollywood had ever witnessed when he donned the role of preacher Harry Powell in 1955's The Night of the Hunter. This wasn't just another villain. This was evil wrapped in scripture, delivered with the kind of soft-spoken menace that made audiences squirm in their seats. Powell's infamous knuckle tattoos spelling love and hate became cinema's most haunting visual metaphor for human duality. These weren't mere props, but philosophical statements etched in flesh, representing the eternal struggle between good and evil that Powell claimed to embody. The irony cut deep. A man preaching salvation while wielding destruction. What made Mitchum's performance revolutionary was his ability to weaponize religious fervor as a tool of psychological warfare. Powell didn't simply threaten his victims. He convinced them that God himself sanctioned their suffering. His twisted sermons and biblical justifications created a new breed of screen monster, one who used faith as a mask for predatory instincts. Director Charles Laughton amplified this nightmarish quality through expressionist cinematography that turned ordinary scenes into fever dreams. Shadows stretched like grasping fingers, and Powell's silhouette against starlit skies suggested something supernatural and malevolent stalking the innocent. The film's most disturbing element emerged from Powell's relentless pursuit of two children who possessed knowledge of hidden money. This dynamic shattered conventional boundaries of 1950s cinema, where villains typically targeted adults. Powell's patient manipulation of the children, alternating between false kindness and barely contained rage, created an atmosphere of dread that lingered long after the credits rolled. Mitchum's Powell didn't just redefine screen villainy. He established a template for religious fanaticism in cinema that would influence generations of filmmakers seeking to explore the darkest corners of human nature disguised as divine purpose. Anthony Perkins' Norman Bates demolished every assumption about what screen monsters should look like, sound like, or act like. His 1960 performance in Psycho didn't just break taboos, it obliterated them with a boyish smile and stammering voice that made audiences question their own instincts about danger. Perkins understood that Norman's terror lay in his relatability. As he explained in interviews, "I think the key to Norman Bates is that he's a very vulnerable person. He's not a monster, he's a human being who's been twisted by his environment." This approach created something unprecedented, a killer who generated genuine sympathy even while wielding a butcher knife. Norman's awkward politeness and nervous energy made him seem more like a lonely motel clerk than a homicidal maniac, which of course was precisely the point. Hitchcock's directorial choices amplified this unsettling duality. According to behind-the-scenes accounts, the director kept Perkins isolated from other cast members during filming, creating an atmosphere that Perkins later described as unnerving but effective in capturing Norman's alienation. This method enhanced the character's disconnection from reality, making his violent outbursts feel like psychological explosions rather than calculated attacks. The infamous shower scene became cinema's most shocking moment, not through graphic violence, but through its complete subversion of audience expectations. Hitchcock noted that the shower scene was a technical challenge, but it was also about making the audience feel complicit in the violence. The sequence's rapid cuts and Bernard Herrmann's shrieking violins created visceral terror while maintaining the film's psychological focus. Norman's fractured psyche, revealed through the twist ending, established new standards for character complexity in the horror films. His conversations with Mother weren't mere plot devices, but genuine psychological portraits of dissociation and trauma. When Robert Mitchum stepped into the role of Max Cady in 1962's Cape Fear, he crafted a villain so relentlessly malevolent that audiences left theaters genuinely unsettled. Unlike other screen antagonists who possessed redeeming qualities or tragic backstories, Cady represented pure, undiluted evil, a force of nature driven solely by vengeance. Cady's methodical campaign of terror against lawyer Sam Bowden's family elevated psychological warfare to an art form. Rather than resorting to immediate violence, he orchestrated a calculated siege of intimidation that poisoned every aspect of their daily lives. Phone calls in the dead of night, ominous appearances at family gatherings, and veiled threats delivered with chilling politeness created an atmosphere where safety became an illusion. Mitchum's imposing physical presence transformed Cady into a walking nightmare. His broad shoulders and predatory gait suggested barely contained violence, while his cold stare could freeze blood in veins. The actor's natural charisma, which had charmed audiences in previous roles, now served a darker purpose, making Cady's menace feel disturbingly real and immediate. The film pushed boundaries that Hollywood rarely dared approach in the early 60s. Themes of sexual violence and obsessive stalking challenged censorship standards, forcing audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about vulnerability and justice. Cady's pursuit wasn't random criminality, but calculated revenge against a man who had testified against him years earlier. What distinguished Cady from other cinematic villains was his complete absence of remorse or self-doubt. He felt no guilt about terrorizing innocent family members, viewing them merely as tools to inflict maximum psychological damage on his target. This unwavering commitment to evil, combined with Mitchum's magnetic screen presence, established a blueprint for future psychological thrillers where the monster wore a human face and spoke in measured, civilized tones. Barbara Stanwyck's Phyllis Dietrichson didn't just seduce men, she seduced audiences into rooting for a cold-blooded killer who treated murder like interior decorating. Her 1944 performance in Double Indemnity crystallized the femme fatale archetype with such devastating precision that every subsequent screen siren would be measured against her platinum blonde perfection. Stanwyck's calculated approach to evil made Phyllis terrifyingly relatable. Rather than portraying her as an obvious predator, she crafted a character who weaponized vulnerability and desire with surgical precision. Her ankle bracelet, a detail Stanwyck insisted upon, became a subtle symbol of her duplicitous nature, hinting at hidden motives, even in moments of apparent intimacy. Billy Wilder recognized this genius, noting that Stanwyck possessed a certain hardness, but also a vulnerability, that made audiences believe she'd actually commit murder for insurance money. The film's razor-sharp dialogue, polished by Raymond Chandler, transformed ordinary conversations into verbal chess matches where every word carried deadly weight. Phyllis's seemingly innocent observations about her husband's insurance policy became loaded weapons, delivered with Stanwyck's trademark blend of sweetness and steel. Her line readings made manipulation sound like flirtation, turning Walter Neff's downfall into a masterclass in psychological seduction. John Seitz's shadowy cinematography amplified Phyllis's menace, using Venetian blind patterns and harsh lighting to fragment her face into geometric puzzles of light and darkness. These visual techniques made her beauty feel artificial and dangerous, like a trap designed to ensnare the unwary. Stanwyck embraced this artificiality, admitting she wanted audiences to never forget that Phyllis was fundamentally a murderer beneath her polished exterior. Modern actresses from Rosamund Pike to Charlize Theron have cited Phyllis as direct inspiration for their own manipulative characters, proving that Stanwyck's blueprint for feminine evil remains cinema's gold standard. Anne Blyth's Veda Pierce shattered Hollywood's sacred image of childhood innocence, transforming daughterly devotion into a weapon of mass emotional destruction. Her 1945 performance in Mildred Pierce didn't just create a villain, it birthed a monster wrapped in ribbons and curls, who made audiences recoil from their own maternal instincts. Blyth's masterstroke lay in Veda's complete absence of gratitude or warmth toward the mother who sacrificed everything for her comfort. While other screen daughters might rebel or disappoint, Veda actively despised Mildred's working-class origins with aristocratic disdain that felt genuinely venomous. Blyth delivered cutting remarks about her mother's restaurant work and romantic choices with the precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel, each word calculated to inflict maximum psychological damage. The character's social climbing ambitions revealed a new breed of female antagonist, one driven not by passion or desperation, but by cold calculation and class consciousness. Some critics suggest that Veda's pursuit of wealth and status through manipulation rather than merit resonated particularly negatively with audiences who had lived through the Depression and understood the value of honest work. Blyth portrayed this entitlement with such convincing arrogance that viewers found themselves hoping for the character's comeuppance with unusual intensity. Veda's romantic entanglements served as vehicles for her cruelty, rather than genuine affection. Her secret marriage and subsequent blackmail schemes demonstrated how thoroughly she had weaponized every relationship in her life. Blyth's performance captured the character's ability to shift between sweet daughter and calculating predator within single scenes, creating a psychological whiplash that kept audiences constantly unsettled. The film's climactic confrontation between mother and daughter became one of cinema's most brutal family reckonings. Veda's final acts of betrayal, including her role in a murder that destroys Mildred's life, cemented her status as the ultimate ungrateful child. Blythe's portrayal influenced generations of screen villains who would use familial bonds as tools for manipulation rather than sources of genuine connection. Anne Baxter's portrayal of Eve Harrington in 1950's All About Eve introduced audiences to a masterclass in calculated deception wrapped in wide-eyed innocence. Where other screen villains relied on brute force or obvious menace, Eve wielded something far more dangerous: the ability to make her victims complicit in their own destruction. Baxter's genius lay in crafting a character who existed in the gray space between victim and predator. Eve's trembling voice and deferential manner masked a razor-sharp intellect that cataloged every weakness, every vanity, every crack in the armor of those around her. She didn't simply lie. She constructed elaborate emotional architectures designed to make others feel protective, generous, and ultimately foolish. The film's razor-sharp dialogue became Eve's primary weapon, each carefully chosen word serving multiple purposes. When she praised aging Broadway star Margot Channing's performance, the compliments carried subtle barbs that highlighted Margot's insecurities about her fading youth. Eve's supposed admiration functioned as psychological warfare, delivered with such apparent sincerity that rejection seemed cruel and petty. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz understood that Eve's true horror lay not in what she did, but in how effortlessly she did it. Her systematic infiltration of Margot's inner circle, befriending the playwright's wife, charming the critic, seducing the director, revealed a mind that viewed human relationships as chess pieces to be maneuvered for maximum advantage. Eve's legacy endures because she exposed an uncomfortable truth about ambition in show business: that talent alone rarely suffices, and those willing to sacrifice integrity often claim the prizes that should belong to others. Baxter created a warning story that alerted against mistaking vulnerability for harmlessness, establishing a template for female antagonists who conquered through cunning rather than cruelty. Richard Widmark's Tommy Udo giggled his way through acts of brutality that made seasoned moviegoers recoil in their seats, establishing a new breed of screen psychopath who found genuine joy in human suffering. His 1947 debut in Kiss of Death didn't just introduce audiences to a memorable villain, it shattered every expectation about how evil should behave on screen, replacing brooding menace with manic delight that felt disturbingly authentic. Widmark's most shocking innovation was making Udo's violence feel spontaneous and unpredictable. Unlike calculated criminals who planned their cruelty, Udo operated on pure impulse, his high-pitched cackle erupting without warning before acts of savage brutality. The infamous wheelchair scene, where he pushes an elderly woman down a flight of stairs, became cinema's most disturbing moment not because of its violence, but because of Udo's childlike glee during the act. Widmark's performance made audiences realize they were witnessing something fundamentally different from traditional screen villainy. The actor's background in radio drama served him perfectly for this breakthrough role. His voice work had taught him to convey menace through vocal inflection alone, skills that translated into Udo's distinctive speech patterns. Rapid-fire delivery punctuated by those bone-chilling giggles that seemed to bubble up from some dark psychological well. Director Henry Hathaway recognized this vocal gift, praising Widmark's interpretation of the character's manic energy. Udo's complete absence of remorse or self-reflection created a template that influenced generations of cinematic psychopaths. His gleeful embrace of violence, combined with Widmark's naturalistic delivery, made the character feel genuinely dangerous rather than theatrically evil. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences recognized this groundbreaking achievement by nominating Widmark for Best Supporting Actor, a rare honor for a debut performance that redefined how audiences understood screen villainy through pure, unfiltered sadistic joy. Andy Griffith's transformation into Lonesome Rhodes shattered every expectation audiences held about America's beloved folksy entertainer. The 1957 film A Face in the Crowd revealed Griffith's extraordinary range as he morphed from charming drifter to megalomaniacal media monster, creating cinema's most prescient alert about the seductive power of mass communication. Screenwriter Bud Schulberg crafted Rhodes as a character study in corrupted charisma, expressing his vision in interviews. He wanted to show the terrible power of mass communication and how it can be used to manipulate people, with Lonesome Rhodes starting as a charming rascal before power exposes the rotten side. This wasn't mere entertainment, it was prophecy wrapped in celluloid. Griffith initially resisted the role, fearing it would destroy his wholesome image. Director Elia Kazan convinced him by arguing that playing against type would prove his acting prowess. During production, Griffith would isolate himself between takes to maintain Rhodes's toxic energy, demonstrating his commitment to the character's psychological darkness. The performance's brilliance lay in its gradual revelation of Rhodes's contempt for his devoted followers. Griffith's vocal modulation shifted masterfully from folksy warmth to fascistic fervor as Rhodes gained influence, showcasing meticulous preparation that transformed his entire persona. His private sneers at the idiots who worshipped him contrasted sharply with his public persona of down-home wisdom. Rhodes's climactic breakdown, screaming into a dead microphone in an empty studio, became cinema's ultimate condemnation of unchecked ambition. The scene almost faced studio cuts, but Kazan fought to preserve this visual metaphor of a demagogue reduced to impotent rage. Some critics believe the film's failure at the box office proved its own point. Audiences couldn't accept their beloved Andy Griffith as a monster. Yet time vindicated Kazan's vision, as Rhodes's manipulation tactics now seem eerily familiar in an age of social media influencers and populist politics. Margaret Wycherley's Ma Jarrett transformed motherhood into a criminal enterprise, turning maternal devotion into the engine that powered her son's descent into madness. Her 1949 performance in White Heat didn't just challenge Hollywood's sacred mother figure, it obliterated the archetype entirely, replacing nurturing warmth with calculating manipulation that made audiences question every family bond they'd ever witnessed on screen. Wycherley's genius lay in making Ma Jarrett's twisted love feel genuinely maternal while simultaneously revealing its toxic foundation. Her character coddled Cody Jarrett through his violent headaches and psychotic episodes, treating his criminal activities like proud achievements worthy of celebration. This perverse inversion of maternal pride, where bank robberies earned the same approval as good report cards, created a family dynamic so disturbing that critics struggled to categorize it within existing moral frameworks. The actress approached Ma Jarrett's evil through subtle domestic details that made her influence feel insidiously real. Her character's constant presence during gang meetings, her casual discussions of murder over breakfast, and her strategic advice about criminal operations established her as the true architect of the gang's success. She delivered these moments with such naturalistic conviction that Ma Jarrett's criminal mentorship felt like twisted wisdom passed down through generations. Critics and film historians note that director Raoul Walsh's direction required delicate balance between maternal instinct and criminal calculation. Her scenes with James Cagney crackled with genuine affection that made their codependent relationship simultaneously touching and repulsive. This emotional complexity forced audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about how family loyalty could enable destructive behavior rather than prevent it. Many film scholars argue that Wycherley's Ma Jarrett established the template for every villainous matriarch who followed, from Livia in I, Claudius to Cersei Lannister in modern television. Her performance proved that maternal love, when corrupted by criminal ambition, could become cinema's most chilling form of evil, one that destroyed through devotion rather than hatred. Robert Walker's Bruno Antony weaponized friendship itself, turning casual conversation into psychological warfare with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. His 1951 performance in Strangers on a Train introduced audiences to a new breed of villain, one who made murder sound like a reasonable business proposition over cocktails. Walker's genius lay in making Bruno's monstrous logic almost persuasive. His rapid-fire delivery and manic enthusiasm transformed the crisscross murder scheme from horrifying concept into twisted entertainment, as if he were discussing weekend plans rather than homicide. This wasn't the brooding menace audiences expected from screen killers. Bruno bounced through scenes with the energy of an overeager party guest who happened to be completely amoral. Hitchcock recognized Walker's unique ability to blend charm with menace, later praising his ability to make audiences connect with the character despite his actions. As the director noted, He had a great gift for making the audience like him while he was being absolutely terrible. Bruno's relentless pursuit of his imagined pact with Guy created a suffocating atmosphere where politeness became predatory. His appearances at tennis matches and social gatherings felt like invasions disguised as friendly visits, each encounter tightening the psychological noose around Guy's neck. The film's exploration of complicity reached disturbing depths through Bruno's manipulation. He transformed Guy from unwilling listener into reluctant participant, forcing audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about moral responsibility. Walker's performance made Bruno's twisted reasoning feel almost logical. If someone wished another person dead, why not act on it? Bruno's carnival scene confrontation crystallized his terrifying appeal. Walker's delivery of threats through gritted teeth while maintaining his public facade demonstrated the character's complete disconnection from normal human emotion. His ability to switch between murderous intensity and social pleasantries within seconds created a psychological whiplash that kept viewers perpetually off balance. Walker's untimely death just 2 years later added tragic weight to his portrayal, making Bruno Antony his haunting final masterpiece of calculated madness. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.